Hello and welcome to the Nonprofit Thrivability Podcast by Beyond the Blog. I'm your host, Reed Corley, podcast producer and consultant with the Patterson Foundation. Today, I'm joined by Lisa Intagliata, Chief Executive Officer of Resilient Retreat. Lisa and her organization are two-time participants in Margin and Mission Ignition. Their first engagement supported the development of the Retreat Sarasota, an earned revenue event rental venture. They then returned through the advanced MMI track to design additional mission-aligned programs that leverage both their existing expertise and the infrastructure of the Retreat Sarasota. Resilient Retreat operates on more than 60 acres, offering a place where individuals who have experienced trauma can access resources and professional support to heal. I encourage you to listen closely for the ripple effects created through their participation in MMI. Lisa highlights several, including an often overlooked dimension: how internal and external communication shapes stakeholder alignment when a nonprofit launches a social enterprise. What that means for staff, donors, and partners matters, and she speaks candidly about navigating that delicate process. So without further ado, please join me in welcoming Lisa Intagliata. Lisa, thank you so much for your time today joining me on the podcast. If you would, please start us off by just telling us about Resilient Retreat and your social enterprise venture.
Sure. Thank you, Reed. It's a pleasure to be here today. So Resilient Retreat, we're a relatively young nonprofit, just going on 7 years old in the community. And our mission is to help adult survivors of trauma and abuse, overcome trauma and help them in the healing process. And everyone's journey is different. We do that at Resilient Retreat by offering day programs, intensive overnight retreats that are multiple days, offering holistic programs, and helping them build a supportive community, and also just provide them, these holistic programs that are based in evidence, that are confidential, and that are free of charge to our participants to help them on their healing journey. And our population, not only is it adult survivors of trauma, but that includes the first responder and helping professional category as well. So anyone who is experiencing trauma in the workplace. So think of, firefighters, police officers, medical professionals, 911 operators, but then also a lot of other helping professionals like therapists, nonprofit workers would qualify for services as well.
And the reason we're talking with you today is because of your involvement in Margin and Mission Ignition, a initiative funded by the Patterson Foundation. They hire consultants Mike and Larry from No Margin, No Mission. And with them, I believe you created your social enterprise venture called the Retreat Sarasota. You've kind of mentioned all the services you offer at Resilient Retreat and those being free for your clientele. So the Retreat Sarasota, I imagine, is a large piece of being able to provide those free services. So tell us a little bit about the Retreat Sarasota and your work with Margin and Mission Ignition.
Sure. So several years ago, it was really right after COVID, we were working on, really how are we going to sustain, offering our services for free to our participants for the long term. And we saw during COVID, those that relied on grants or on a thrift store initiative or, had their eggs in one basket, a special event, for example, were really struggling because of, COVID was really constraining in a lot of ways. You had to do things differently. And we said, we have got to think outside of the box. Philanthropy is obviously one of our main generators of income annually, but how could we diversify our income base? And I was aware of the great reputation of Margin Mission Ignition and the Patterson Foundation program. And we, at that point, didn't know what we didn't know about a for-profit side of the nonprofit. So we applied for Margin Mission Ignition. Happy to report we got accepted into the program. Knew during the very the lengthy process, but the process that I think is so essential in vetting who MMI takes on is for them to let you know that you have the time investment the brain power investment, the fact that you need board members and the CEO and staff all involved at the same time, so everybody's on the same page and everybody's committed and rowing in the same direction. So I think that was essential, so we knew what we were really getting into, what we were signing up for. And it was essential in us being able to create the Retreat Sarasota. It helped us think through a lot of questions, issues, needs that we never would have thought of had we not had the expert advice and consulting services of our rep was Michael Oxman, who's been amazing. But with their guidance, we were able to craft the business plan. Just even using, the software to how to create a business plan, and then all the research that led into your homework every week. We had board members. We had, created this from nothing and established it, and then had a separate board for the Retreat Sarasota. In the learning process, after 2 years of having a separate board, through this process, we decided, after talking to legal and accounting and just seeing the way it worked, we actually rolled it back under the auspices now fully of the Resilient Retreat. So we learned a lot in the process, but we were able to raise the startup capital during the first phase, to hire a full-time event sales manager, to do all the marketing, build the website, get the right software in place that you need to manage renting out this facility when it's not in use by our participants for things like weddings and corporate events and so on and so forth. So it was vital to us being able to have that diversified revenue stream. And right now it's probably a little over 10% of our annual budget is coming from the Retreat Sarasota, but we're just going into 3 years old as the Retreat Sarasota and the property rental business. So I know that number's going to grow, and I know we're going to get into a little bit later sort of the second phase of MMI, which is going to help us make that a bigger chunk of our operating budget next year.
Yeah, well, that is a lot. And it sounds like, this started, you guys, as you said, you're 7 years old, the Resilient Retreat is, and to already be, pursuing a social enterprise venture, being that young, you're trying to figure out two things at once almost, the earned income side, the nonprofit side. How did working with MMI take you from a concept to reality? TPF calls this going from a gas state to a liquid and then to a solid. So it feels like now you've reached that solid state. How did MMI help work you guys through that, just, being an idea all the way to reality now?
Sure. And it was definitely a process, but having the weekly check-ins, having the homework in between, having a thought partner was essential, and someone that wasn't so close to the work that they could see different things, differently, and challenge us to think outside the box, to do our homework, to do even more additional research on competitors. What are the key indicators? What are things that, maybe we could be bringing to the community from a marketing perspective that we haven't thought of? So it was just someone it was really an accountability partner every step of the way, and someone to, again, challenge us and be a thought leader alongside staff. I think that was essential.
And so a TPFism that we like to refer to is not coming to the table with all the answers, right? Having an open mind. What do you think was your biggest incorrect assumption about the process working with MMI? And how did you go about correcting that assumption, or how did your mind change over the course of working with them?
Yeah, well, I think initially, we thought, especially when it came to the fundraising aspect, we were like, oh, well, I'm sure they'll come to us with ideas of ways that we could, people or people that might be interested from an entrepreneurial perspective. And they certainly came up with, ideas of ways we could fundraise. But the people and getting the people interested and the donors, that is all 100% on the nonprofit. So people should know that going in. And that's understandable, right? So you it challenged us to also get to know our donor base in a deeper way, to understand, who might really be interested in more of an entrepreneurial type of social enterprise that might pique their interest. Not that they obviously have a core belief in our mission, but something like this can really excite people who might have more of a business mind or an entrepreneurial spirit. And that was a help for us to be able to dig deeper, talk to donors about the social venture, and come up with a group to invite to the fast pitch to invest in our initial investment, to hire our event sales manager, and like I said, launch the whole business initiative. And now we're getting ready for our second fast pitch.
TPF has 5 internal stakeholders they define as the CEO, executive director, the board, the staff, donors, and volunteers. And you talked a little bit about the donors right there. So what were the donors' initial reaction to you all pursuing this social enterprise venture?
By and large, I think there was excitement. And I think coming off of COVID, there was an understanding of this is smart for a young nonprofit who's offering services for free to look at utilizing the beautiful 84 acres of land, the brand new facilities that we have, and utilize it in a way that we could generate additional revenue and income for the organization to provide more service and deliver more on mission. At the same time, just as they were excited, I think there was also just caution, and I know staff was really nervous about this too, and it's been honestly an ongoing battle, but we've now got a lot of systems in place just to make sure that we were always putting our mission work and making sure that the facilities were always available for participants first and foremost, and then making sure we weren't double booking things or not having the space needed for mission programs. So that's honestly also been something we've worked really closely with Michael Oxman on, is finding systems and calendaring, and actually been switching software systems sort of midway through to have a better booking system, if you will, so that program team were not, butting heads with the rental side of the organization, and that we were delivering for not only the rental clients, but then we'd have plenty of dates available for our participant programs. So there definitely are some growing and learning pains along the way, but you learn from it and you adjust. And I think that's the beauty of MMI, is they're right there alongside of you, offering up ideas and creative solutions.
And so a lot of what we talk about on this podcast when in regards to MMI is we're talking about earned income, right? That social enterprise venture, but the part of that is keeping the mission in mind, right? No margin, no mission, margin and mission ignition. It's all about the mission at the end of the day. So how did you all decide to go with the rentals as your first social enterprise venture, and how did that support your mission? And then also, now that you're preparing your second, what is that? What's the second venture, and how is that tying in with your mission as well?
Sure. So, we decided to pursue the rental business because this property, before we were gifted this property by an anonymous donor several years ago, the property, when we did a little history, the property was utilized by a former owner as a wedding venue. In fact, when I first interviewed for the position as the CEO, I was like, I've been out here before. My goddaughter got married out here when this was the Oaks at Windsong Farm. So I knew it had been utilized as such and was a really successful wedding venue. So I thought immediately that this could be a viable venture, but again, didn't know where to start. So that's where MMI was critical in helping us build the business plan and think through for everything from marketing to logistics and staffing, et cetera. So that's how the idea came about. And then as far as mission, during the MMI process and the business planning, we were talking a lot about how are you going to position, why is it important for someone to book the Retreat Sarasota and with you versus a ballroom at a hotel? And we led with that we are the venue that saves lives, because it's true. Your booking proceeds goes towards the mission of helping trauma survivors in their healing journey and changing lives and the mental health of our community. And it's over and over again, I hear from our customers that they signed on the dotted line and booked with us because they loved the social impact that it had. And it, made them feel really good that their money was going not only to a beautiful, venue for their special occasion, but that it had a longer lasting impact with helping the community and helping people. So that was a definite win-win. And then this second, we're like gluttons for punishment. We signed up for the advanced MMI because during the first round, we started to hear from customers and clients that, we really love like what we're reading about Resilient Retreat and the programs that you offer to your participants. And could we get some of that programming when we sign up for a corporate retreat or a staff retreat, or even, honestly, like a wedding, they might want to book a yoga class or something like that. And we said, gosh, we didn't even think about having some of our, mission related classes available, an a la carte menu. And then the idea was formed to look at really going after the wellness business and people that could book the retreats. We can accommodate, we have sleeping accommodations for up to 30 here at the retreat center in a full commercial kitchen, plus, wonderful spots for breakout rooms and a huge community room space and a little bit more intimate space in our living area. So we have a lot of different offerings, plus all the outdoor venues. And we said, why not put together some packages that people could come and have like a full wellness retreat, either do their own curriculum or tap into our wonderful program team who are experts in the field, and have them for an added fee deliver some of our educational programs or our holistic, mind, body, and spirit programs. So that's where we are now with building out the wellness industry business plan and attracting more wellness target audiences out here.
Wow, that's really cool. And I love it because it feels like it stacks right on top of the rental business. Like it's an addition to what you guys are already doing. So you're not completely reinventing the wheel, and you're also utilizing the expertise of the people you already have on staff, the programs you already provide for your clientele. So that sounds like an extremely aligned social enterprise venture, and I can't wait to hear more about that as it continues on into the future. I do want to back up just a little bit here because this is a selfish question, and you touched on it a little bit, but Resilient Retreat and the Retreat Sarasota, why the original separation? And then I believe you said that you brought them back together. So are they still two separate brands? What was the thinking behind the whole saga of that?
And well, and again, MMI and Michael Oxman were instrumental when we went through the process. They are two still separate brands. So there's Resilient Retreat, the nonprofit side, and the Retreat Sarasota, the for-profit entity. However, it's no longer a for-profit C corporation. When we started out, there was just, a lot of advice between a lot of different people regarding experts, in the field who said we should make it a separate C corporation with a separate board. And, there was a lot of light on other entities that were doing property rentals in the community that were nonprofits. And so we decided to try it out that way. And then again, fast forward about, 2-3 years later, it was just hard managing, honestly, two boards. There were just made so much more sense as we were doing things in execution and in reality to just bring everything under the auspices of the nonprofit. So now, it's under the same, everything is the same. We keep separate books, and we have the same bookkeeper now, though. So that streamlines things. Everything is now under the umbrella of Resilient Retreat. So, it was good to start it out that way and then learn from it. And now I think, it's going to just remain under the auspices of Resilient Retreat from here forward.
Yeah, well, I love that you went a certain direction, you realize not everything's permanent, and you are able to change directions. I think a lot of organizations would do well with having that sort of mindset, because you don't have to keep going down this path. We can change things if they aren't working.
Right.
extremely efficiently.
Right. And Michael was
feels
great because he said, I really am worried that if you lose the name, the Retreat Sarasota, and all of the branding that we've done over the last, 2+ years, that will hurt the organization and the property rental business. So the decision was made to then just keep the branding all the same, but just bring everything in-house.
Very cool. And it sounds like some ripple effects of that are, increased efficiency, things as basic as the bookkeeper, the accounting, and I'm sure there's many other aspects that are more efficient now.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Starting to wind things down here, we talk about external stakeholders being people, businesses, nonprofits, government, and the media. And with those in mind, how do you think this venture changed how the community saw your organization overall? How did developing the Retreat Sarasota change the view of the resilient retreat in the community?
Well, I think, as we did press releases, especially when, we did the initial MMI and the fast pitch, and then, creating the Retreat Sarasota and getting all of that marketing out to our community, I think, anytime a nonprofit has an alliance with a strong foundation like the Patterson Foundation, it definitely, especially, we're a relatively new nonprofit to the community as a whole. So it's not like we're, someone that's been around, an entity that's been around the community for 20, 30 or more years. So it added a great deal of credibility, I think, in our donors' minds, in the minds of the media, the community at large, knowing that the Patterson Foundation believed enough in us to enter into the MMI program with Resilient Retreat that, they saw something in us, especially as a young nonprofit. So I think that definitely helped Resilient Retreat and helped us in the process. And then we've been really trying to make sure that our marketing is consistent, and it's always mentioned in any of our Retreat Sarasota marketing that this is the venue that saves lives, and that proceeds go back to the mission work of Resilient Retreat and helping trauma survivors go from just surviving to thriving. So we've been trying to really work on our marketing plan and making sure that there's consistent messaging.
Well, I know from what I've heard in the community, you guys are doing just absolutely great work. And I'll talk to you offline about a couple of people that I've heard that have gone and just had such a great experience. Last question here. Just one piece of advice. The Patterson Foundation calls it cookies from your jar. What's a cookie from your jar that you would share with us, another organization that's thinking about going through margin and mission ignition?
I think one of the mistakes that, and I'm going to put this on me, that I made early on in the second phase was, we all thought that the wellness business, to get into that was the right thing to do. And that's absolutely still the case. And I made the mistake of not fully discussing this at length with our program team, who by and large were going to be the ones responsible for either facilitating some of those wellness programs or finding our facilitators to do that, because we do rely on a lot of our volunteer facilitators. And how are we going to structure, the use of volunteers? Are we going to pay some of the volunteers? And so there was all these questions, and they knew the general gist of what we were doing with the advanced MMI and applying for it. But once we got into it, I was like, I have got to now bring everybody onto the same page, because there was a little bit of headbutting going on. So we did that, and now the whole program team comes on our calls, and whoever can make it. But there's at least one or two that are always with us, so that there's constant communication flow back and forth. Because I find that if you don't have that communication flow and you're leaving people out of discussions, that's where the problems happen. So I would say, my biggest cookie out of that jar would be make sure from the get-go that you get everybody's buy-in, and you really think through, especially as a leader of an organization, who from your team needs to be on those calls and really, at every MMI, meeting, so that we can talk through the issues and come out successful in the end.
Communication's the key to everything.
Yeah.
I mean, you bring up a good point there where you are working with people who are in the nonprofit sector, likely to serve a mission because that's what drives them. And then you bring in this earned income venture and they might not be serving the same people that they got in it for. How did you navigate that? Because that sounds like something we have not talked about on this podcast and a massive hurdle for some organizations.
It took a lot of discussions. I'm just going to be honest with you. And it took, there was a time where I phoned a friend and I phoned Michael and I said, Michael, at that point we were just beginning, thinking about going into the advanced MMI. And I said, would you come down and facilitate a 2-day retreat with our whole staff? Because there's, program team, development team, administrative part of our organization that were kind of just butting heads and they weren't understanding necessarily. I don't think we were all taking the time to stop and understand what it was like from everybody's different perspective. Development is thinking about it from one perspective. Our event sales manager is thinking about her goals with revenue, generation. Then our program team is thinking, wait a minute, we want to make sure we have enough time and space for our programs and how are we, if we use our volunteers for paid items, then how does that work? And so there was just a lot of angst, misunderstandings. So Michael came down and we did a 2-day strategic plan session around a table where we just put it all out there and had a lot of very hearty and healthy, not always, we weren't all singing Kumbaya around the fire type of conversations. But it was what was necessary. And we came away from that with, okay, now I get why program team is concerned. Now I get why Brandy is, our event sales manager, why she needs to fight kind of for what her goals are and, the admin perspective. And so we were all, on the same page. That's not to say that on a daily basis, we don't have to do these check-ins with one another. We absolutely have to work on it each and every day, but it definitely laid a better foundation for all of us to at least have each other's perspectives in mind.
Absolutely. Well, I think that's a shout out to you. I think a lesser leader would have allowed those issues to just bubble up and explode at some point. But the fact that you attacked that and brought in a facilitator to, help align your team is kudos to you. Lisa, let people know how they can learn more about the Resilient Retreat.
Sure. You can visit our website at resilientretreat.org. Also, the retreatsarasota.com is our property website, rental website. And then they can also call. We have a kind line I want to mention too. So anyone that is struggling, needs a kind, supportive listening ear can call our kind line at 941-343-0039.
Awesome, Lisa. Well, thank you so much and have a great rest of your day.
Thank you, Reed.
Thank you for listening to the Nonprofit Thrivability Podcast by the Patterson Foundation. For more information, please visit www.thepattersonfoundation.org.